You're probably dialing in your amp wrong. So in this video, I'm gonna show you how to fix that. So before you get crazy in the comments section, remember, first of all, there is no right or wrong way to dial in your amp. It's all user preference, right? Now, I've been playing for years, owned a ton of different guitars and amplifiers, and indeed, there is a method to the madness of how to EQ your amp based on what you're using, whether it be humbuckers or P-90s, right? Playing styles affect this, genres of music, the rooms, and the applications, right? You know, if you're at home by yourself or on stage or with a band. EQ is the very first step, and then there's the amount of gain or saturation, and then finally the volume. Now let's take a look at a few examples, and remember, this all varies, but it's great general knowledge to have in your back pocket. And make sure you stick around till the end of the video, because we're gonna show you how to dial in that magic sweet spot between bridge and neck positions on either a humbucker or P90 style guitar. So before we get started, ring the bell, hit the like button, and subscribe to this channel. It'll keep you up to date on future videos. So a quick overview here. Not all amps are created equal, right? But they all share common things. And let me point some of those things out to you right now that you're gonna come across depending on what amp you're looking at, okay? So on the front panel, you'll see gain, which is your saturation or distortion. Now this happens two ways on amps. You're either gonna have it as a preamp distortion where it comes from the preamp tubes, and there's usually a master volume associated with that, or you're gonna have a non-master volume amp. Now with non-master volume amps, you've gotta crank the tube section or the power section of the amp to get those overdriven tones, also pushing the speaker. So with the master volume amps, you know, you can control the volume a little bit more and get those saturated tones at lower levels. Basic EQ, and when we talk about that, we'll see treble for the highs, mid for the mid frequencies, of course, the actual thickness of the tones, and then you've got your bass for the low end response, and the presence. Some amps will have it, some amps won't, but that's really affecting the power section, or like the final end of the highs, like the pick attack and some of the clarity on the top end of things, besides just the treble frequencies. And then of course, you know, you've got a reverb control on this one and a master volume. Now, you'll also come across amps that have channel switching. You know, most of the time that's gonna be a clean channel and an overdriven channel. Or in the case of this Fillmore 50, we've got two identical channels, right? So it's basically, almost look at it like you're switching between two sets of controls, being able to do the same thing if you want, right? Two cleans, two distortions, or two drives, you know, or mix and match, right? So those are your basics that you're gonna be coming across, and the things that we'll be working with today as far as controls go. Okay, so let's start with some clean tones. I've got a Fillmore 50 combo here, and I'm on the clean mode of channel 1. All the knobs except for the reverb are at noon. We'll get the reverb dialed in after we get our tone dialed in, right? Got a P90 guitar here, and let's get started. So here is the amp with the guitar, just everything at noon. Little bright, so the first thing I want to do is turn my treble and my presence controls down a touch there. Maybe back just a tiny bit more. Great, now let's go ahead and look at my low frequency so I can clean that up a little bit. We want to give some girth to the P90s, right? So let's just lower the bass a touch and the mids and see what happens there. Almost there. I'm gonna probably give a little more mids, little less bass, and probably a little bit more on the treble and that presence. So I've got that chime on the top end, I've got the low end. I'm gonna back off just a touch more on that presence because it's getting a little ice picky. Nice, now we're there. Let's add a little bit of reverb in. Now, notice my gain, it's still at noon, and I'm not really breaking up that much. So the cool thing is, you know, I can push that if I want, or if I want to just back it off a touch and raise my master, I can get a little bit louder and cleaner. Now notice when I put the gain back up, there's a little bit of that bite on that top end. Same settings on the amp. I've got a humbucker bass guitar now, this 335. Let's take a listen without doing any adjustments first. Okay, here's the bridge pickup. Okay, let's state the obvious here, right? A lot more low end and output. That might be good, that could be bad. Let's look at what we can do to just kind of balance that out just a touch, right? Now, our bass control is gonna be the first thing I'm gonna look at here. Let's go down a little bit on the bass. Okay, now the low end has leaned up quite a bit. Now let's listen to our highs and mid-range frequencies. What happens if we decrease some mids since we've got more now with the humbuckers? It's a little sweeter now in that mid-range, right? And now it's up to you for taste-wise, but I can also bring back some of that presence and maybe just keep the treble where it is to kind of open up that pick attack. And now maybe I'll control the full overall frequencies of the treble there. And then real quick, let's listen to our gain. It's not really breaking up yet, but notice that we are able to maybe just go down a little bit. And it really kind of cleans it up even more there if you want that type of vibe, right? So let's go ahead and bring it back to where we had it at noon. And now let's go down a little bit there. And now somewhere in the middle, I think, is where it wants to land. So as you can see, we adjusted the EQ section for both the P-90s and then the humbuckers, right? Now, in the same fashion for the cleans, we're gonna now transfer that over to our next exercise, which we'll be looking at crunch tones. Now, I'm gonna bring in a single channel amplifier with a non-master volume circuit. So this is for all of you out there that have like maybe a vintage amp or like a tweed circuit or like a British circuit where you've got to use your volume control on your guitar to help with your dynamics going from clean to your crunchy or overdriven tones. And let's see how the EQ and settings are gonna be affected between humbuckers and P-90s. Let's do it. For the purpose of this exercise, I've got something a little bit different. I've got like a one channel amp here with no master volume. So this will be great for players out there that've got like a tweed style or some sort of vintage style amplifier where there's no channel switching, so you're probably hitting it with a pedal or a clean boost, or old school, you're just riding the volume knob when it's time to take your solos and go cleaning it back up for your rhythm sounds, right? So let's check this out. I've got a Falcon 20 here. Everything's at noon right now. Reverb is off. P90 style guitar. Here we go. Okay, so first things first, let's turn some of that brightness down, right? So my tone's at noon right now. Let's go back a little bit to about 9, 10 o'clock there. Nice. Now this amp doesn't have a full EQ range like some other amps, so this is actually something really nice to work with here because it's very simple, right? Now, I'm at breakup now, okay? So what I want to do is I want to hear what this is going to sound like when I turn the volume down to get it to clean up slightly. So here we go. And then if I need to take a lead or crunch it up a little bit, I can just turn up on the volume. all the way up on the volume. Now I'm going to go ahead and turn that down. And then when I go back up, I've got that lead tone now. Now that we've got that kind of established, let's just kind of hear a little bit of reverb. If we're not looking for breakup at all, feel free to just go ahead and turn the volume down on the amplifier. Okay, so now let's check out those same settings with the humbucker guitar. Okay, already breaking up, we hear more volume, hitting the amp harder, a little more low end. I'm gonna go ahead and find out what happens when we turn down the volume to see where we are for the cleanup. What we're looking at here is, how much clean tone do you need versus how much, gain, right? So with an amp like this, I've got two inputs. I've got a high and low input. Let me just hear the difference between the first and second input. That might help us out with a little bit of cleanup if you need a little bit more clean, right? And now let's go to that second input. Okay, now we have a little bit more control and I can actually push the amp a little bit further up from the noon position there. Now I've got a little bit more control now over the amount of clean versus the gain, right, for the overdrive. Let's mess around with the tone a little bit. I think we can get a little bit more highs out of there now. Okay, so there you have it. Keep in mind, some of the things you want to think about is treble and presence. Those can always be increased a little bit on the humbucker tones versus P-90s, just because they're a little bit thicker sounding. And then watch the bass response, right? You're going to have a little bit more bass with the humbuckers versus the single coils. But that's basically it. A little bit lower input level there really helped clean up this humbucker guitar. As you can tell from this last example that we just did, there's a lot going on with the, overall output of your pickups that affect the sound of the amp, especially when you're trying to clean it up and use your volume control on the instrument itself. That second input for lower input levels really helps when you've got a hotter pickup. So keep that in mind when you're using an amp like this in those situations. Okay, on to some high gain. I've got a Mesa Boogie Badlander 100 here. Can P-90s do metal? Yes, it can. Just ask Tony Iommi himself. Let's hear everything here at noon first. Not the master volume, of course. With something this wattage, want to try and watch out for the volume here. But let's hear this guitar, everything straight up here, okay? Okay, so first things first here. I'm gonna definitely wanna dial in my high frequencies, right? The higher mids and the treble and the presence. So let's hit that first. I'm gonna just give us a little less on the presence, a little less on the treble. I might wanna keep the mids where they are for now, and let's hear that. Nice. So that calms everything down on the high side. Let's tighten up that low end. Something about the high gain stuff is it's perceived that there's a lot of low end that's needed, but it's actually the opposite. You got to keep that stuff tight so that way it fits into a mix really good as well, and for you chuggers out there. Okay, so check it out. You hear that little noise there? Field hum or 60 cycle hum. Now, positioning is going to help with that a lot. I'm sitting right next to the amp right now, and the gain is up pretty high. It's on the crush mode. Even though it's only at noon here, there's a lot of gain on this amp, right? So you can always kind of move. Check this out. As I get closer, it gets louder. So move away from it. It's a little bit more manageable. Each room has a sweet spot, right? And again, we've got a lot of gain happening here. The nice thing about P-90s is because it's a single coil pickup, I can get a little bit more clarity out of it even with high gain. So let's see what happens when I increase the gain a little bit more. And I tell you what, I'm going to bring back a little bit of that presence. One of the things you'll notice with P-90s and single coil players with high gain, it's that quick hit on rolling the volume back, right? To keep things quiet when there's stops or, you know, needing to communicate or something like that in a band rehearsal. So. Same settings on the amp here. Let's listen to some humbuckers now. Okay, what are we hearing? A lot more low end, right? So I'm actually going to attack that first because that may adjust already what's going on with the highs a little bit. That might alter some of that. So let's do the lows first. Let's just take some of the bass down and hear what that sounds like. Maybe a little more. Up a little bit. I've got a thicker sounding pickup now. I can do a little more presence and a little bit more treble to open it up. I might want to take the mids back a little bit now because there's already mids in the humbucker. So let's listen to that. I like that, and then because we're hitting the amp harder output-wise, we might even be able to try experimenting now with the gain. Let's roll down a little bit less gain. Let's see what that sounds like. So really interesting to see how high gain is affected by your different pickups, right? If you noticed how we, added some low end for the P-90s, added some gain, and then when we introduced the humbuckers, we took away some low end, we added a little bit of high end, and we were able to take some gain off, or we noticed how the gain got pushed or the amp got pushed because the humbuckers now introduced, more output level. So again, do it the way that works best for you. There's no rules here, but it's just a really nice experiment and a great way to figure out how to quickly dial in those tones to suit each type of pickup style. And remember, all the items that we're playing in this video, including the amps and the guitars, they can be found directly on our website. Those links are gonna be in the description below. So back to that one thing we mentioned in the beginning of the video, right? How to dial in your amp when you're having to cycle through pickups. Now, if you're like me, I struggle sometimes with trying to get, the right tone when I'm switching from my bridge pickup to middle position and then onto my neck. Sometimes you might notice that the bridge might be bright and then when you go to the neck, it's kind of muddy and vice versa. Here's a couple of tips here on how to dial it in properly. Think about it this way. There's a couple of different approaches here. Where do you spend most of your time? Are you a neck player? Are you a bridge player? Are you a rhythm player or a lead player? If you're rhythm, your tones are going to be a little bit darker, a little leaner, not getting in the way of other instruments. If you're a lead player, you're trying to push through with those mids and volume, right? And a little bit of high end to cut through for your solos. So what I have set up for you right now is everything's pretty much at noon, except the master, of course, the master volume. I got a Les Paul guitar here, and we're gonna go through all three pickup positions. I'm gonna start with the bridge and dial that in first. Okay, let's get a little less presence, a little less treble, and a little less bass, maybe a little less mids at the same time. I'll watch that low end, lean it out a little bit, maybe take off some of that gain, because I'm trying to keep it clean. Now I can bring back some master. And then we'll add a little bit of reverb. Let me back off that verb just a touch. Nice and controlled for that bridge pickup. Let's hear what happens when I go to my middle position. And then to my neck. So, as you can hear, it's a little muddy sounding, but not really when I'm playing single notes. It's more of like when I'm trying to play chords, right? That low end and those mids, and we kind of lose some high end just because of the nature of where the position is of the pickup on the guitar. Watch what happens when I try to dial it in for the neck pickup. So we'll start again, everything at noon. Now we're breaking up a little bit because we've got the humbuckers pushing the amp. So I'm gonna turn the gain back, turn the bass down, and then maybe I'll just add some treble and presence and bring down the mid slightly. Better, it's a little more clear, a little more low end could go down. Okay, that's pretty good. Let's get a little verb back in. Again, slight breakup because it is humbuckers pushing, so I'm going to turn the gain down, a little more master. Middle position. And then the bridge. Okay, so what's happening here? You might be sitting there listening and going, well, that's bright. What do? We're kind of stuck now, right? We got a little secret trick here. Remember, there's tone controls on the guitar itself. So in this situation, what I would do, or I would suggest is, we get our neck, we get our, middle positions dialed in, and then let's just, adjust the high end off the guitar itself. So, now when I switch through the positions, I have a nice, bright and clear neck position. My middle position has chime for chords. And now when I go to my bridge position, it's nice and balanced. I can go darker if I want. And that should also apply in a P90 or single coil situation. I hope this helps all of you out there dial in your amp a little bit better and more suitable for whatever guitar you're using according to the pickups, right? P90s, we know needs a little bit more low end, a little less highs, maybe a little bit more mids, and you've got to play with that output level. And then versus humbuckers, where you've got more bottom, more mids now, you can maybe add a little bit more presence and treble, and then you've got these pickups now pushing the amp in different ways. So do what works best for you as always. And if you're interested more in learning about tube amplifiers, check out our wattage video where we go through a 25 watt amp, comparing it to a 50, all the way up to a 100 watt amplifier. Thanks for watching.